maybe just talk about strategies you used that you noticed worked,
Mhm.
or things that were hard or stuff like that.
I just got such amazing results. So, I mean, the process of picking a minimum is profound, and then you do it a little bit recursively.
Yeah.
So, I mostly keep counter to that. I usually habitually kind of keep the maximalist view in my mind, like what am I really trying to accomplish in the end? Can't help it in a sense. Um, and so just the process of finding a minimum spot, and kind of removing everything else and asking yourself the question, um, which I often did with clients, which is like, what's the seed? What's
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
fundamental element? And if everything that can be removed was removed, and what couldn't be removed, what's left?
Mhm.
Um, so that process was great, and I ended up with a goal, and then I pretty much immediately refined that goal like the next day.
Yeah.
And so then I had a new goal, which seemed like more like the right goal. And um, so the first my shall I get into specifics on the project? I don't know.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, as
All right,
much as you would like to share.
I'll lay some on you. So yeah, the uh that initial goal that came to mind was get the Apple Music version in parity with the Spotify version.
Yeah. That was the first week. That
Um,
was what you had.
yep, yep. So the Spotify version is the grandpa around here now, because I've been working on it for 9 months, and I've been trying to switch over to switch horses midstream to Apple Music. I've been trying to do that for a while.
Mhm.
Anyways, that was the goal, was reach parity. Um, and then I revised that goal uh, to a new goal.
Yes, it was, I believe, if it's the same goal that you were talking about last week, it was
Yes,
have something that is the product itself in its intended environment playing.
yes. What a roller coaster emotionally it was, because I stepped into that goal. So that became the new minimum, and then the recursive
Mhm.
part kind of like, then what's the incremental step towards that, like
Yes,
little
yes.
bubble, right? And so it's the new minimum of the journey to the minimum. Maybe you do that 3 times or 4, I don't know,
So
you
there's
can.
really no limit.
Right,
Because
yeah.
the smallest building block is, I call it an action, which is something
Hmm.
that you can do
Oh,
without any
there's an
cognitive.
atom, huh?
Yeah, yeah, basically, where there's no cognitive burden. It's, you don't have to think about it. It just happens automatically. It's like raise your hand, or maybe a little more complex than that, but something that you're so familiar with where you don't actually have to think about how to do it. And you can keep reducing it past that, but there's really no point.
I love it. An action. It's like an atomic
Mhm.
piece of that process.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, so what a roller coaster it was. So once I had decided the new minimum was use your product as it's supposed to be used, it's like, it's a little
Mhm.
bit surprising I haven't done that. I think just because it's too daunting, or anyways, I think I've tried to delegate that out
Mhm.
to testers. And I've gathered a handful of people, but they have live. Anyways, never was
Mhm.
like ongoing, and totally understandable. Maybe 5 or 6 folks,
Yeah.
but I can't expect people to be like as obsessive about this little project as I am. That's kind of ridiculous. But so the goal was, um, use the product as it's intended to be used
Mhm.
myself. At Google, they call that dog fooding.
Huh, interesting. That's,
Eat your own
well,
dog food.
it makes sense that there should be a word for it because it is an
Yes,
important part of the process.
it is a very important part of the process. And so yeah, it was a total roller coaster, because I decided, use the product as it's supposed to be used. So I figured I'd go ahead and do that, and it would be right away. And what I
Mhm.
discovered was so many roadblocks in that. it wasn't possible for me to actually do that and use the product as it was intended to be used.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God. So then I had to like, gear, I had to deal with gear. It was like, so I had to like kind of choose and design how to do that, and then order from Amazon, and then gear arrived, and then plug it in and test it out. And that was a shock. It's like, I didn't even know I was going to need some gear. Um, and then the software was like, nope, can't do it. I mean, it works. My software works, but in this context, in the use case, it was like, no go. And I was like, oh no. I was really surprised. And then I just went into fixing it and fixing it and fixing it, and eventually it worked, but only for 4 seconds.
Huh. Interesting.
And then and then I just started extending it, and then it was 8 minutes, half a day later, and then 55 minutes
awesome.
the next day, and then 5 hours and 11 hours, and now it runs overnight, and I can use it as it's intended.
Wow, that is a really cool troubleshooting process.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, so that's actually really cool that you hit your goal within the week then.
I hit the goal. Yeah, that's a little shocking.
Yeah, it is. It's because that is, if you go into it kind of having the patience of, I will keep having hurdles and then identifying the minimum for that hurdle and keep doing it, you can actually make progress. Because all too often I have the phenomenon of, I have my goal set so laser focused on one goal in the future, and I spend my whole day trying to get there, but I don't actually progress because I cannot see all the steps that are needed to get from here to there.
Yep.
Yeah.
That process of finding just the closest lily pad is super useful. Super useful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now that you've hit your goal, do you see what the next major minimum is?
Well, this trajectory? One of the things that I do with Coach, with Tana, is celebrate like accomplishments. So, so really kind of this is an extremely big threshold for this product. It has been 9 months. And so there's like a little bit of celebrating to be done now. I'm going to try and re-engage with my half a dozen testers, and I might get one of them to possibly engage, maybe 2. I might be able to add a person or 2, perhaps. If you know anybody out there who might happen to have like a giant iPad, then let me know.
Yeah, well, I do. I would love to be one of your testers.
Oh my God, that's right.
Yeah, in fact, I'm taking notes right now on my iPad. So yeah.
Those are so nice. Can I see it again?
Yeah, it is the 2017 12.8 inch, I believe.
That was my first big iPad, and I killed it recently, or about a year ago. But I really want to show this to you, but I'm not sure how to do that. Maybe you can just promise to cut it out of the video. You can have it on the video.
The videos are edited, so yeah.
You have to remember though, it can't go out to the people yet.
Yeah. I will tell Angel that this is for our eyes only.
Okay, cool. Do you do any editing before you send it on to the person? Anyways,
I could, yeah, sure. I can edit it out if you'd rather me do that.
Yeah, maybe in your hands. Yeah,
because I do video editing. So yeah,
you know what? And I'm obviously being overly careful, and it's probably really not to my benefit. There's going to be this moment where I'll be like, hey, like with everyone else trying to get the attention for some great thing, blah blah, and it'll be impossible to get the attention then.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is an important threshold that I am grappling with myself. At what point do I start sharing the product? And because if I have too high a threshold for myself, I freak out. I never feel confident enough to do it. So I need to have like in writing, once I hit this stepping stone, that is when I will start publishing. So that makes sense.
Classic artist thing, right? I mean, I have it in spades too, you know. It's never good enough, you know. I
Mhm.
mean, you know, or you're always thinking, should I ship now? Oh no, I can make it better, you know. And it's so far short of the visualization, you know. It's always short.
Yeah.
Um, but do you know the famous Steve Jobs quote?
Mm. There's a few,
So
but
yeah. I like him. He's one of, I don't know, you know, he's here to a lot of people, but so I think it speaks to this. So the quote is, and I think it's real. I don't know, maybe it's not even real, but real artists ship.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
that there's actually a very funny story behind that quote. It has been
Huh?
attributed to countless of creatives
I
throughout
love it.
the centuries. Yes, in a variety of media, in
Nice.
poetry, in art, in literature. It is, and I live by that.
Amen.
I do
Yeah.
love stealing ideas. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So why don't we just to make the editing a little easier? Why don't we do that
Sure.
at the end of the session? Like after we'll
Perfection.
look over it
Good
because
idea.
yeah, because you actually mentioned something that I would love to talk about a little more, which
Mhm.
was you said it was a major threshold for your work
Yep.
and that you would
Hmm.
like to celebrate a little.
Hmm.
That is actually what most of my work this week has been for myself, is kind of
Good.
being very methodical about when what are my main goals, and once I hit them, what am I going to do to recover? Because I get really
Hmm.
laser focused. I get
Yeah,
laser
yeah, yeah,
focused on
yeah.
my tasks
Me too.
and
Right, right.
my health deteriorates and
Me
my
too.
room gets chaotic. So I kind of just
Me
have
too.
to, yeah, it's probably very common.
Yep.
So just really having that formal reminder that it is necessary. It is necessary to progress to insert those breathing breaks. And not only that, but
Yes.
that there are there's a wide range of ways to celebrate, and that some of them are more sustainable than others. For example, for me,
Yeah, and I read your post too on this subject, and
mhm,
it's very timely for me. Didn't even think I'd have the energy to do the thing, but I was like, I'll do it anyways.
mhm,
So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So it is. I like thinking of it as forms of play, where if work is investing attention into something that will give return on investment, so
Mm,
you spend your time and you spend your attention on something, and it doesn't give you anything for a very long time, but then at some point it's all worth it. That's basically what
yep.
a project is. That is what work is. But then play, on the other hand, is spending the same resources of time and attention on an activity that will give nothing, that is not connected to time at all. You don't do it thinking, oh, this will make me smarter or a better person or anything. It's
Hmm.
just
Hmm.
I'm having fun. This holds my attention. I don't have to work to do it, but it is just existing in the moment. And it sounds kind of cliche because everyone says live in the moment, but it is hard. It is really hard to
Oh
actually
God, it is
take
hard.
care of yourself in terms of mental health that way.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I think I've found that there is definitely a very concrete goal that I'm trying to achieve here with this work.
Mhm.
But that said, um, I've found that the process is so valuable that it's actually valuable in and of itself. And if that
Mhm.
result, which I am working towards, is completely not realized, the process and the journey actually has been so helpful for me that it's definitely worth it already.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, and
yeah.
I really agree with that. That
Mm.
for most, I guess, for projects similar to ours, where it is such a big project where it's hard to even perceive what the end goal is, the only way to actually make progress is to not worry about that, to just really enjoy the craft itself. And every day, um, the reward is just coming up with ideas and making things work.
Yeah, I'm super focused on that eventual goal, and that's a very hard goal, and I am working towards that absolutely every day, and that is really really driving me. But it's like it's giving me the dopamine that I need, and I think during the pandemic, during the winter, I mean, it has been very hard
Mhm.
I'm sure I'm not alone. You know, there was a lot of depressed time in bed, and so yeah, the engagement. I don't know. It's just doing my energy good.
Mhm.
But the drive is that goal is really pulling the drive right now,
Mhm.
big time.
Yeah.
Because I'm close. I'm 9 months in. Probably should have released 3 months or 6 months ago. Um, uh, yeah. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I also experienced a pretty intense burnout session at the end of the
Mhm,
winter after
mhm.
being the most productive I've ever been in my life. But then I
Oh,
just
really?
I just got I put the blinders on a little too much. And at some point you can want it as bad as anyone can want it, but you're just
Right.
you're out of juice. So there was
Yeah, I can
depressing
totally
to contend
relate.
with.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh my God, what a year it's been. Good Lord. Wow. So,
Yeah, so I hope to avoid that by being very mindful about my rest cycles, my the rewards that come at every major landmark that I pass on my project.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am totally with you. Um, yeah, yeah. Not depleting my energy. Um, I mean, it's such a challenge that it's sort of like desperation for me, unfortunately. So lots and lots of challenges, but I'm really glad that I'm making some progress and it's fun.
Mhm.
Yeah.
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 So has your rate of progress changed your perception of the 10-week period as a whole?
You know, I'm optimistic about that time frame, but it's in light of kind of how uh, I'm always off if I approximate. So if I could hit the 10-week mark if I try and release next week.
Mhm. Yeah.
So if I really wanted to do that, I would. And then actually, even if I tried next week, because it's like I got to build a website probably also. It's
Mhm.
a whole additional project.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. There's a lot to do. There's so much to do,
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. At the 5-week point,
mhm,
I'm going to talk to Hannah, but I think we might change the time of meeting and
mhm.
also have kind of a reassessment of the goal itself, because
Great.
as you found it, as I found it, and I'm sure other people are
Mhm.
finding, it's so hard to get a good estimate of how much work can be done in a certain amount of time. Like, for example, my
It's
big
like
goal, I thought it
impossible.
was very reasonable. And then now I'm thinking, well, I might barely squeak by. And I'm sure as more time progresses, I will realize that it is even harder than I could have imagined. So,
How would you describe your minimum goal right now that you're talking about?
um, good question. The minimum goal, like the 10-week minimum goal that I see for myself that I thought was very reasonable, was having a game that I could share with friends, share with a small amount of friends, and that all of the basic functionality is there. So the basic functionality is stuff like you can turn the pages of the virtual book, you can make
Hmm.
friends, you can plant seeds, you could drink potions, and you can read a book from start to finish. And the art might not be very good, the gameplay might not be very good, the story itself might not be very interesting, but there is just a product that people can interact with. And then
Pretty similar to
ideally,
the, pretty
yeah, then
similar to the
ideally it would
one
be
that pretty
quality.
similar to the goal that I had too. But go
Mhm.
on. Yeah.
Yeah, that the maximum of the 10-week goal was that, but it also has all the bells and whistles that I want to show off, because I've most of my work, most of the time I've spent on this project has been on the cool stuff, not on the functional stuff. But
Got it.
I do need to pass that functional landmark before I even worry about all the other stuff.
90% perspiration, 10% inspiration.
Yeah, yeah, I do. Yeah, so my state in that right now is I am I do like abstract thinking, but it is a resource that I run out of
Mhm.
quite a bit. So what I've been doing is I've been doing physical assets of all of the sprites that will appear in the game, I have them as
Mhm.
little tokens, so I can like play around with them and move them and see what pieces fit where. And I have binders full of the little pieces. Each one represents like a tiny little algorithm, and then I just move them around on paper instead of trying to move them all around in my head. So that's my,
Nice.
yeah,
Nice
it's been,
process.
yeah, kind of, it's more time intensive, but less brain power intensive, less attention intensive. And that's kind of my mantra for my process is, can I do this in a way that saves my processing power and might just take a little more busy work time? Because there are a lot of hours in the day, and it's attention that runs out the fastest. At the end of the day, it's always like, I don't know, turn on some show and kind of just zone out past, I don't know, past 7 or something. I'm just out of juice. So I would rather have more juice and then just work smarter with my time.
Sounds good, man. That's a good. I don't know. It's really aligned with what I need to do in here too. So thanks.
Mhm.
Yeah. I was gonna ask too. It, I heard the phrase at the beginning of that framing of the goal of something like I could be able to share with
Mhm.
friends.
Yeah.
But that could part, I was wondering whether that's like I feel as an artist it's ready, or the technical
Yes, just technically.
bear.
It's, yeah, that it would
Okay.
have no, it would not be a reflection of the content that I am. It's not really creative content. It's more just,
Hmm.
this is the first, this is just the bare bones of something. And yeah, I would supplement it with stuff like this that I was showing. Like ideally,
Hmm.
characters like this would appear in the game
Hmm.
in um,
So what I wanted to ask is, when you arrive at that point, when it's ready to share with some people, you've arrived at the goal. How will you know you've arrived at the goal?
yes, that is a great question. I've grappled that with that question for such a long
Maybe you
time.
asked me that.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It is, yeah, the quintessential artist's struggle, and I have a certain number of benchmarks that I am meaning to hit, and they're not that polished yet. They still exist as a range of possibilities because every single thing in a plan or in consciousness exists as a range of possibilities, as a minimum and a maximum. So I have a very fuzzy minimum and maximum on these things. And as I get closer to it, I can zero in a little more on
Yep.
what it is. But simply by knowing what metrics I'm aiming for in the first place is enough of an anchor where I'm comfortable leaving it for now. And I trust that once it gets within firing range, like once I am starting to look at, I don't know, when it's within 1 week goal or 2 week goals, I will re-examine it.
Nice. Nice. Woo. Wow. I should have saved some energy today. Oh, Lordy.
Yeah, no, that's good. So you were just doing the what was it, the overnight, was that last night when you did the overnight test?
Overnight tests have gone on for 2 or 3 days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I'm so pleased. I'm so pleased. I mean, it's a little bit like it kind of, I don't know, just sort of emerged. Just
Mhm.
um, the original product back in 2004 um, was single album centric. So you just saw one piece of graphic.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, so there was just one CD there, one jewel case. But there was always this vision of jewel case collector where you had, your whole collection, like a whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
And so that was 2004.
Mhm.
Maybe it was even before then that I shipped it. But um, so yeah, there was that very, very simple version that back then that was very popular. And then this version is finally a manifestation of the collector concept with many of them. And how long is that? That's 17 years later, I think. 17
Oh
years
yeah,
later.
long time.
A really long time, super long time. So a manifestation of that. So I've been working on that, which is sort of more like the pro version, and it
Mhm.
probably won't come out first. Anyways, I've been working on the pro version only for this 9 months.
Yeah, yeah.
And the free version actually is more important, arguably. Well, it likely comes out sooner,
Mhm.
but like, you know, you could hope to get maybe 100 to 1 people to cross over from free to paid.
Yeah.
You know, that would be a success. 2% would be awesome. 5% is like, oh my God.
Mhm.
So I haven't worked on the free version at all.
Mhm.
Um, uh, so now finally that has emerged for basically the first time this week. There's
Mhm. Yeah,
finally a one at a time experience that wasn't there before. So
yeah. So now that you've hit this milestone, you
mhm.
said that you were going to have maybe a little bit of celebration and then the search for testers, maybe. Do you know what else? If you were to set like a 1 week micro goal, what would be a satisfactory thing to have at the end of the week that you do not have now?
So ship out to test flight so testers can receive it, but that is already done. I did that yesterday,
Nice.
and I'm updating it today. I haven't done that yet, but I will be updating it today. So out to the cloud, so people can download it. So the next goal after celebrating, you know, some self-care is a very good idea.
Mhm.
Very, very good idea. You know, that always produces results. So
Yeah,
it might be some of that.
yeah.
Actually, you know what? I am celebrating. I'm going to go see my girlfriend, and there's kittens. There's 5 kittens.
It's so cute.
So I'm going to be hanging out with 5 kittens for a couple of days or so. So I'll be away for 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, nice.
But I do bring my work there, and I get very inspired when I'm there. And gosh, what should be my goal? Boy, oh boy, I don't
Well,
even
it
know.
sounds to me like maybe a good goal would be to have a few days of dedicated rest where you say, today I do not touch my work. I've noticed that my own productivity has actually increased since I've done that myself, where I
That's
have,
smart.
yeah, I have, because I just logically know that I have to rest at some point. So I would
Yep.
rather have it be in my control rather than
Yep.
under my control.
Right. That makes sense. That makes sense. You know, resting is so my default. I'm like, oh my God, I'm working. It's so great. But yeah, so I am going to take it a little bit easy. I'm going to celebrate a bit. I'm going to have some kitten time, which is exciting. They're like a week old.
Oh, wow. So super
I
kitten.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, or 2 weeks or something. Anyways, but and I should have a new goal. I mean, the goal that I first had that I superseded, maybe that's the one, which would be Apple Music parity,
Yeah.
which is a very good goal and a clear goal and an extremely important goal. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a great next goal. There was if if you thought of it back then and you look back and it's still a good goal, that means that it is most likely the next major step.
It makes a ton of sense. Yes, makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's actually, you want to hear a little more about process too?
I would love to.
Okay, so I started on the Spotify version. It's a white icon, by the way. And basically the app is made of 2 halves. So half is made with Unity, which I am sort of trying to, anyways, I was going to keep that to myself, but I think this is getting published, so that's just the way it is. Anyways, half of it's Unity, and half of it is Xcode, the host app, the specific platform. So the app itself, which runs on your iPhone or your iPad, or your Mac if you've got an Apple Silicon Mac. That's exciting and new. So it has 2 halves. It has the Unity half and the iOS half. Right?
Yeah.
And then, so that's the Spotify app. So then I started the Apple Music app, and they're two separate apps. And the Apple Music app also has two halves. It has the Unity half and the Apple Music half.
Yeah.
The Unity half and the iOS, iPhone, iPad half that supports Apple Music.
Yeah.
Again, two halves. And then, so two halves on the Spotify version and two halves on the Apple Music version. And the Unity half on each of them is the same.
Mhm.
So there's three halves
Yeah.
that make
Yeah.
two apps.
Yeah.
So I was hoping that like I was really taking a step to formalize my process, and I was putting stuff up on GitHub and for the first time. And so I've got three repos, and then they get sewn together. Two of the three halves get sewn together into two apps. So it was very cool to that was actually a multi-month goal procedure before our meeting started. But
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, so basically getting parity on Apple Music version should be, hopefully, if it's designed, properly, which it looks like it's working. I've exercised it. I'll gain all of the changes that I've had made in the Unity half.
Mhm.
They're already there automatically, and then there'll be some rigmarole, debugging, dancing, whatever it is around code in the Apple Music part.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is the next major step. And do you have a sense of if it's a 1 week thing or a multi-week thing, or was that the entire 10-week goal? Or I guess that was technically the minimum for the 10-week goal, right? Originally.
I think that the 10-week goal actually is probably pretty darn significant, and maybe I haven't said it. I don't think it's registered for me, or neither of us have registered really. I think my goal for the 10 weeks is shipping to the public, which is
wow.
a very major goal.
Yeah, that is a
I
big
am
goal.
not. I'm 9 months in. I'm 9 months in. I had to change horses. I think I got realized that I couldn't use Spotify about maybe 3 or 4 months in. So I'm an additional 5 or 6 months out from that already.
Yeah.
The original jewel case was done in 7 months, and Alchemist Rose, which was an art project, it's another kind of statistic I can look at, took 3 months. So
yeah, so
before
with the data you have, this seems like a reasonable amount of time that an app should take to deploy of this type.
Yeah, I'm so swinging for the fences and like really trying to hit a home run this time. I'll probably never feel like it's good enough I don't know. There's a big risk of that. Which I think I've mentioned before. I definitely have dropped the ball many times. Well,
that is actually kind of the. I don't know exactly how it would work out in the payment structure. It's unfortunate that there aren't more tiers available. Like, for example, you have the base tier right now, which is free access, and then there is the premium version. But it's I don't know. Like for my project, I am intending to have kind of a scaling gradient of options.
Great. I don't have anybody to talk to about that kind of strategy stuff, and I think it's important, and I think about it a lot. But it's an echo chamber in there. The freemium model, right? And yeah, there's a whole thing there.
Yeah, because I remember you said that right now subscription is what's hot, and it doesn't. It's not exactly.
I was contemplating whether to share kind of the little like brief history of how the App Store has progressed. I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. Yeah, for that. So iPhone 2007, App Store 2008. There were your third parties could, like developers could come in, make an app, provide it on the iPhone, sell it through the iPhone. Very big deal. Made a lot of kind of created a lot of jobs, I think. Made a lot of opportunity for people. So there were just two models then. You make an app, you could choose it to have it be free, or you could have it be paid.
Yeah.
And okay, cool. And then there were in-app purchases. That was the next phase. There were in-app purchases, and so you would have your free app, which was free, or you had an app with in-app purchases, but you had to call that a paid app. You had to charge for it at that time to get the app, because it's a paid app. And then you can also, there's a store inside the app, and you can make payments for things in there. Yeah. So there was this rule where if you had a free app, you couldn't actually have in-app purchases where people pay you once you're in. It's like, oh, you said it was free, but now I have to pay for things when I'm in there. So that was the rule, an understandable one. And then they changed it. And now there's the freemium model, where the app itself is free. You have your own store inside of your app in your little walled garden. And you can charge for stuff there. Yeah. So that's the in-app purchase model. And the in-app purchase model was basically the king, and basically paid out to developers the most out of any strategy that was available.
Yeah.
And then there's nuances within the in-app purchase, and that's been the longest reign. So of the top grossing. But then there's like one-time upgrades, where it's like you got a free app and the in-app purchase for a pro version.
Yeah.
Just a one payment. And then they've got kind of more fancy recurring payments. Yeah. I think they call them consumables. So, and I think consumables were introduced also later as a next partial phase. And so consumables became the big driver of all of the economy of apps. Yeah. Yeah, like, you collect coins or something inside the game, for example.
Yeah, yeah.
Or you can pay for them. Yeah. That kind of thing. So, I've always been stuck on that very first model, free and paid, and I never actually even graduated to in-app purchase and like just upgrade once to the pro version in there. I think in-app purchases are a little bit challenging to implement. And then, oh yes, gosh, then the final one was subscription. So it's moved from consumable in-app purchases to subscriptions, and I think which is fairly new for the App Store as a rule. It's and so now I think that subscriptions have superseded in-app purchases as the bigger revenue generator for the store in general. So I was always stuck on that very first model, and I never had a product that I could think of a more of a higher powered model, that might actually be financially sustainable. I've never really had a product that was financially sustainable, where the work that's required to keep it going and alive is justified, that the money that's coming in from it could supply enough, to make that possible, self-sustaining, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was very excited with this product when I was like, hey, I think subscription is the answer. And I think this product in particular, I've got dozens of ideas and products. None of them have a financial model, but this seemed to emerge as the singular one and the singular way to maybe have a shot at having a self-sustaining business.
Yeah.
So that's subscriptions. Yeah, that's the whole little history.
Yeah, there actually is, I believe, one more approach, and I don't know if it's app compatible because it happens on games quite a bit, and I don't know how the market intersects with the App Store.
Okay.
It's the idea of early access, where if you are an early adopter of the game, you can play it, and there's like a limited community. You either, depending on how early you get into it, you either get it for free or for cheap while it's still being developed. And then once it hits a certain point, it is like the official release, and then it's the full price. And then if you opt in early, you have the discount, whereas people who opt in later pay the full thing.
I love this idea. I'm desperate for testers. I think I'm ready for 100. I might possibly even be ready for 1,000, but getting people is hard. So the early access idea is a great idea. And then the app store, I've had a few apps myself and friends and clients, maybe 4 or 5 or 6 apps in the app store. And, navigating the rules and the bureaucracy is, it's so much of it, and it's challenging. It's challenging for sure.
Imagine.
So early access, yeah, we would have to look for some nuanced, I would have to pore over details on contracts to see how if that's going to be approved or not. The history with Apple is they have very consistently been opening it up and making new strategies, and they are responding to feedback of being too limiting. So there's more and more features. I think like, for example, like a free trial was a modality that's common in the software industry, for the desktop, but was a model that was forbidden on the App Store until it wasn't. Then they decided to support it.
Yeah.
So I might be able to like send out coupons or something to those people or something, yeah.
I guess either way, it is down the line. It's not really a priority in the short term, but it is worth thinking about. Where will it end up?
Oh God, you know what? You led me just to the right thinking. So there is, so I'm where I am now, and I want to have more testers than I have, but they're hard to find. There's going to be the sort of obvious answer to you want more people using your thing is released to the public. That's sort of the easy answer. But there is a spot in between, which is the public beta. And that is one step. So I have a test flight now, which is like a private beta, basically, internal beta. So a public beta is a more formal thing. And actually that's the first moment that a human being at Apple will see this product, I believe. So it's the first time it has to go through the review process. So that's actually really, and that would be the mechanism then and then if there's a compensation, giving a coupon or something like that mechanism within Apple's rules, that early access, that can be then tied to the public beta.
Yeah, cool. So you would, I guess, say that maybe the 10-week goal is the public beta?
I might want to be more aggressive than that. Because if I aim for 10 weeks, it's going to be.
Well, I guess just in terms of setting a minimum and a maximum, that would be like a reasonable minimum for now, and then there is still the maximum goal that exists, which is the full deployment. Because it is, I mean, if you hit it early, then you can just renegotiate because you still have the maximum to work with.
I'm going to ponder that more. This process has been extremely effective. So what do you know? I love it.
I would. That's every day is kind of just doing a checkup on, okay, what is the smallest piece that I can work with, and then speak in terms of that instead of reaching for the distant star.
Exactly. Whew, I think I might be running out of steam.
Yeah. Well, it is. You have been really working hard.
I have been, and I've been tired, but that's pretty normal. So, yeah.
Sounds good. That will be a wrap for today then.